The Korean War, the first major clash between the West and communism, a war that, just 5 years after World War II's end, once again split the world into two camps. 3 years of brutal fighting dragged on, without a single border shifting. Both sides claimed victory, but Korea remained forever divided, two halves locked in tension. In the late 19th century, the Joseon Dynasty crumbled under corruption and weakness, leaving Korea more firmly under China's shadow. But the Qing Empire itself was fading fast. Meanwhile, a modernized Japan crushed China in 1895, shattering Beijing's ancient hold on the peninsula. Just a few years later, in 1905, Japan's stunning defeat of Russia paved the way for Tokyo's total dominance. That same year, Korea became Japan's protectorate, and by 1910, it was formally annexed into the empire, an event that scarred the peninsula's fate for decades. As Japan's defeats mounted in the Pacific, America inched closer to the home islands. Finally, with the second atomic bomb crashing down on Nagasaki, the empire collapsed. But in those frantic final days, the Soviet Union, hungry for its share of the spoils, declared war on Japan and unleashed the Red Army into the Korean peninsula. American forces hadn't arrived yet, and the Soviets could have swept the entire land with ease. In that high-stakes moment, two sharp-minded U.S. officers hastily sketched a dividing line on a map. The 38th parallel north. They suggested partitioning Korea between the two superpowers, and astonishingly, Moscow accepted. Likely to steer clear of angering the U.S., plus the more industrialized north, even if less crowded, seemed like a fair trade. Elections were supposed to come swiftly across a unified Korea, but the Soviets refused to allow them in the north. Instead of ballots, Kim Il-sung, a young guerrilla fighter who'd battled Japanese occupiers alongside the Red Army, seized power and founded the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in 1948. That same year in the South, UN-backed elections brought Syngman Rhee to the forefront, an American-educated politician, fiercely anti-communist, and the first president of the Republic of Korea. From then on, two leaders, with utterly opposing worldviews, molded their two Koreas, one leaning on Soviet might, the other sheltered under America's wing. From the moment the two Koreas were born, the border between North and South simmered with unrest. Small-scale skirmishes erupted again and again, often sparked by Southern forces on Syngman Rhee's orders. The ambitious president once boasted in an interview, "I could take Pyongyang in 3 days." In the north, though, Kim Il-sung burned with even greater impatience. He slipped off secretly to Moscow, pleading with Stalin to greenlight all-out war. His persistence paid off, but Stalin, ever cautious, warned, "If you fail, don't expect my help." At dawn on June 25, 1950, while many U.S. policymakers dismissed war as unlikely, North Korean forces surged across the 38th parallel. Tens of thousands of troops, backed by fearsome Soviet T-34 tanks, crashed like a raging flood against the South's fragile lines. Southern units shattered one by one, and just 3 days later, North Korea's flag flew high over Seoul. The surprise blitz stunned Washington. President Harry Truman immediately blamed the Soviets, a claim later proven wrong. Moscow had no direct hand in starting the fight. Still, to halt communism's spread, America moved fast. The UN Security Council convened in haste, and in a rare unanimous vote authorized troops. Crucially, the Soviets could have vetoed it, but their delegate, Yakov Malik, was boycotting sessions over the UN's refusal to seat communist China. And so, a coalition of 16 nations under General Douglas MacArthur, the military governor of occupied Japan, rushed toward the peninsula. Even with UN forces pouring in under that banner, they couldn't stem the South Korean army's collapse. Back-to-back defeats and chaotic retreats slashed America's global prestige to ribbons. By late summer 1950, nearly the entire peninsula had fallen to the north, save for a thin strip around the port city of Busan, a 100-kilometer perimeter, hemmed in by sea on one side and encircled by North Korean forces on the other. As the noose around Busan tightened, General MacArthur hatched a daring, high-stakes plan. He aimed to strike by sea, right behind enemy lines in a spot no one expected, Incheon Harbor. With its brutal tides and treacherous shores, Incheon struck many commanders as impenetrable. But MacArthur gambled big, with naval fleets and crushing air support. In September 1950, American and Allied troops stormed ashore, seizing the port in a lightning assault. It severed the North's supply lines, trapping their army in a deadly vice. Just weeks later, the retreating Northern forces crumbled under blow after blow, and the front rolled back toward the 38th parallel. After reclaiming Seoul and shoving the invaders south to the 38th parallel, the UN command pushed further, no longer just defending the south. Now the goal was erasing North Korea altogether. Yet fears of Soviet or Chinese backlash loomed large. So to soften the optics, Northern ops leaned heavily on South Korean troops, keeping foreign boots away from communism's borders. Despite those constraints, MacArthur unleashed a full assault. Just one day later, Pyongyang, the northern capital, fell. The offensive surged on as the People's Army reeled from route to route. By fall 1950, Northern soldiers huddled at the Chinese border and the Yalu River's banks, where it seemed North Korea was gasping its last. As UN forces triumphantly neared China's edge, the tide flipped overnight. Under cover of darkness, hundreds of thousands of Chinese Red Army troops, disguised in civilian clothes, forded the Yalu, slipping silently into Korea. Soon the storm broke. A massive, blistering offensive shredded the coalition's advance. American and Allied soldiers, caught utterly off guard, fled in panic and disarray. Now the initiative swung to the Chinese and North Koreans. Days after that shock assault, Pyongyang tumbled, its red flag rising once more. The push didn't halt. In a savage rhythm, Seoul fell the very next day to communist hands. China's human wave had rewritten the war's balance. After the gut punch of China's entry and Seoul's second fall, coalition forces regrouped in the south. Bolstered by massive U.S. air power and logistics, defenses solidified, halting the communists' breakneck gains. The battle shifted to a grueling new phase, a war of attrition laced with inching advances and bloody retreats. Months dragged by as the UN clawed back strength, then struck counteroffensives. At last, after ferocious clashes and staggering losses, Seoul flipped for the third time into coalition hands. But the days of swift, decisive wins were gone. The fight devolved into endless, soul-crushing stalemates across the peninsula. Bit by bit, everyone saw it. Korea had become a deadlock arena for the two warring blocs. After 3 years of carnage, front lines froze near the 38th parallel. No clear victor in sight. From 1951, talks kicked off in Panmunjom, but the Soviets dragged them out on purpose, savoring America's quagmire. Finally, on July 27, 1953, an armistice was signed, not a peace treaty. For China, just a year into its own existence, now bloodied against America, this counted as a roaring triumph. They'd not only survived, but saved North Korea from collapse. Korea lingered under twin flags. Only once at the 2000 Sydney Olympics did athletes from both sides march in under a unified banner, a fleeting symbol of unity's dream. But that dream stays unfulfilled today, with shadows of tension still haunting the peninsula. This was just one of history's silent fires. Join us and uncover the rest.